So I want you to imagine your ideal modern relationship for a second.
Right, like the absolute perfect scenario we're all taught to want.
Exactly. You split the bills perfectly down the middle. You divide the household chores with like ultimate fairness.
Totally equal.
Yeah, totally
Yeah.
equal. You sit down on Sunday mornings and rationally discuss your career trajectories over a, perfectly balanced brunch.
Sounds very civilized.
It does. You have successfully engineered complete 50-50 equality. But according to a highly controversial 1997 manifesto, you have also just engineered the absolute death of your sex life.
Wow. Yeah, that is a bold claim. So the bank accounts are balancing out beautifully, but the passion is completely flatlining.
Exactly. And that brings us to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack the text that hits this exact paradox head on.
Right. David Deyida's book, The Way of the Superior Man.
We are going to explore the author's specific and frankly very provocative framework for dating, long-term commitments, balancing professional ambition with intimacy, and how to keep passion alive in a highly sanitized modern world.
And before we get into the mechanics of this, we really should establish some ground rules for how we are approaching this material.
Yes, absolutely. We need a disclaimer here.
Because the source material contains very specific, highly polarizing views on gender, masculinity, and femininity. I mean, it's a text that heavily challenges a lot of contemporary norms.
So just to be clear, we are not taking sides here.
Not at all.
We're not endorsing the author's worldview or telling you that this is how you must live your life. Our job is simply to be your impartial guides.
Right. We are just going to map the terrain of Deyida's concepts so you can understand the underlying logic of his arguments.
So let's jump in. Where does he even start with this problem of the passion flatlining?
Well, the central problem the author identifies is framed around stages of human evolution. Stage 1 was the era of rigid, outdated roles.
Like the classic 1950s dynamic.
Exactly. What he calls the macho jerk who is all spine and no heart, paired with the submissive housewife. But then we evolved to stage 2, which is the 50-50 relationship.
Right, where men got in touch with their feelings and vulnerabilities, and women embraced their independence and outward drive.
Yes. And socially, economically, and politically, the author acknowledges this was a massive, necessary improvement.
And here's the big but the author argues that applying that exact same 50-50 sameness to moments of intimacy actually destroys the spark.
It does. Because we solved for social equality, but in the process, we accidentally manufactured sexual neutrality.
Sexual neutrality, that's such an interesting phrase.
I mean, it is the definition of a well-intentioned plateau. If both partners cling to a politically correct sameness behind closed doors, the juice just dries up.
So his proposed solution to this modern dilemma is what he calls the superior man. What does that actually look like for a contemporary audience?
Well, the superior man represents a stage 3 evolution in this framework. He isn't that stage 1 macho jerk, obviously.
Right, he's not going backward.
No, but he also isn't the stage 2 new age wimp, as the book calls it, who is all heart and no spine.
Okay, so what is he then?
The superior man is unabashedly masculine, purposeful, and directed, yet he remains deeply sensitive, spiritually awake, and completely captivated by the feminine.
So he has integrated the vulnerability of stage 2, but he chooses to live fearlessly from a strong masculine core.
Exactly. He's bringing the edge back.
Okay, let's look at the physics of how this actually generates passion. Because the text calls this sexual polarity.
Polarity is the key word here.
Yeah, and I used to think of this like magnets, where north and north repel. But it's really more like an electrical circuit.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Think of a car battery. If both the positive and the negative terminals carry the exact same voltage, absolutely nothing happens. No current flows.
Right. The spark only jumps across the gap when there is a differential.
Exactly. The 50-50 relationship essentially equalizes the voltage between two people, which just kills the current.
To get that passionate play of energy, you need a ravisher and a ravishee. And the author actually points out that this energetic polarity is entirely independent of gender or sexual orientation.
Oh, that's a really important distinction.
It is. You simply need a distinct masculine pole and a distinct feminine pole. Trying to be two neutral buddies rubbing parts together is, well, it's why the passion fades.
And he backs this up with a ratio he calls the 90-10 rule, right?
Yes. The author suggests that only about 10% of people naturally possess a truly balanced neutral essence.
Right, only 10%.
Yeah, just 10. For that 10%, a companionable 50-50 relationship is authentically perfect. They genuinely do not crave that intense, passionate tussle.
But for the other 90% of the population.
They possess a distinctly masculine or feminine sexual essence at their core.
And modern society often encourages us to squash that core. I mean, we put on a falsely balanced, neutral persona to fit in at the office or, at a polite dinner party.
Right, you have to be professional.
Yeah, but then we bring that same sanitized persona into our romantic lives.
Which the author warns is incredibly damaging. Denying your core essence to fit into this modern sameness causes literal physiological stress. He calls it spiritual cramping.
Spiritual cramping.
All right.
I kind of love that term. Because squashing your true essence means you can never relax into the full, unguarded openness of love.
You are just constantly managing a facade.
So if a man decides to drop that facade and fully inhabit his masculine essence, the author claims it drastically shifts how he organizes his life priorities.
It flips everything upside down, honestly. Let's track how this plays out in daily life.
Yeah, the text introduces a concept called the primary asymmetry of relationships.
This asymmetry is the cornerstone of Derrida's framework. He posits that for a person with a feminine essence, their ultimate priority is the flow of love and the health of their relationships. But for a person with a masculine essence, their ultimate priority is their mission. It is their deep purpose, their search for freedom and release.
You can actually see this reflected in our broad cultural entertainment choices.
Or like movies and stuff.
Yeah. People with a masculine core often gravitate towards sports or war movies because the underlying theme is always about a mission, breaking through resistance, achieving freedom.
Right, crossing the finish line.
Exactly. Whereas people with a feminine core often gravitate toward complex dramas or romances because the search for love and emotional connection touches their deepest essence.
That makes a lot of sense. And because of this fundamental difference in core drives, the author establishes a radical rule for the superior man.
A very radical rule.
A man's highest purpose must come before his relationship.
Okay, stop right there. If you tell someone listening right now that their career or their mission must take precedence over their partner, that sounds like a masterclass in how to end up divorced.
It really does sound terrible at first glance.
I mean, it sounds like a justification for being an absent partner and a terrible father.
Yeah.
How does the text reconcile that rule with cultivating genuine intimacy?
Well, the author anticipates that exact pushback. The underlying mechanics of his argument rely on energy and presence, not just time management.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Derrida argues that if a man compromises his deepest purpose to spend more time with his family out of a sense of guilt or obligation, he fundamentally weakens his core.
He loses his edge.
Exactly. And his partner will subconsciously sense that weakness. She will feel that he is off his path, and she will actually lose trust in his capacity to lead his own life.
So it's less about the hours clocked at home and more about the quality the voltage he brings to the room.
Precisely. The author advocates for a strict rule of quality over quantity, the 30-minute rule.
30-minute rule. I found this fascinating.
He claims that 30 minutes of undivided, absolutely present, ravishing attention is far more fulfilling to a partner with a feminine essence than 3 hours of a man's weak, divided presence.
Because sitting on the couch physically, while your mind is agonizing over the unfinished work you abandoned, serves no one.
It just breeds resentment.
And the text issues a brutal warning here, which is, don't use your family as an excuse.
Oh, yeah. That part is intense.
It's incredibly easy to hide behind domestic duties or running errands because you are terrified of the failure and hard work required to achieve your true mission.
And if you hide, your partner will eventually feel your lack of direction. And what happens is she will have to take charge of the household's masculine energy.
Right, someone has to steer the ship.
Exactly. When a partner with a feminine essence has to constantly step up and supply the masculine direction, making all the decisions, managing all the logistics, because the man is avoiding his mission, her own feminine radiance diminishes.
She becomes hardened.
Hardened, chronically stressed, and deeply resentful because she's being forced to operate outside her core essence.
Okay, so let's assume a man is actually living his mission. His core is strong. He is on his path. How does he handle the messy, day-to-day reality of emotional conflict?
This brings us to dealing with the weather.
Yes. The text spends a significant amount of time detailing how the superior man handles what Derrida calls the weather of the feminine.
And this introduces one of the most fascinating psychological dynamics in the entire book. The author explains that when a woman with a feminine essence complains, The complaint is often what he calls content-free.
Content-free. Okay, picture this scenario from the book. You just landed the biggest deal of your life. Like you literally made $1 million.
Best day ever.
Right. You walk through the front door, ready to pop champagne and celebrate, and your partner is furious.
Just absolutely livid.
Yes. Why? Because you forgot to buy milk on the way home.
Which is so baffling. On the surface, analyzing this logically yields nothing. Why would a missing carton of milk overshadow a massive life victory?
Makes no sense.
Not logically, no.
Yeah.
But if we look through Deida's lens, she isn't actually angry about the dairy product. She is running a subconscious test on his masculine core.
She is testing the structural integrity of his energy.
Yes. Her deepest desire is to feel that his masculine presence is imperturbable. She wants to know that his strength and his capacity to love her are unshakable, even in the face of her own chaotic emotions.
So she pokes him.
She throws a storm at him.
Yeah.
And if he collapses, gets defensive, or starts shouting about how much money he just made, he fails the test.
Because he proves that his internal emotional state is entirely dependent on her validation.
Exactly. But if he maintains his humor, if he scoops her up, laughs, and loves her right through the complaint without needing to defend himself, he passes.
He demonstrates that his core is a mountain that her weather cannot wash away.
And the author uses an ocean analogy to explain why men fail this so often. Men naturally want to analyze feminine emotions and fix them.
Right. They look for a linear chain of cause and effect.
But trying to force a partner with a feminine essence to logically analyze her shifting moods is like trying to build concrete walls in the ocean.
To turn it into a predictable swimming pool.
Yes. It makes the water safer and easier to manage, but it completely kills the wildness and the life-giving force of the ocean.
This changes the entire paradigm of communication. I mean, the author states very clearly, women are not liars.
Which is such an important reframing.
Yeah, because to a masculine brain operating on a grid of facts and historical track records, changing your mind means you lied. But the feminine essence speaks what is true in the moment, based entirely on the shifting flow of emotional energy.
A man's flawless 10-year track record means absolutely nothing to the feminine essence during a moment of distress.
Wait, really? Nothing.
Nothing. You could be a perfect partner for a decade, but if you drop your presence in this exact moment, she will react to the energy of this moment.
So history doesn't matter, right then?
No. Deida advises men to stop bringing up their resume of good deeds during an argument. Instead, immediately shift the physical energy of the present moment through grounded love, humor, or physical touch.
I mean, embracing an unpredictable oceanic emotional storm sounds exhausting. It requires the man to tap into a much deeper, grounded physical energy so he isn't blown over.
And the text calls this tapping into the dark side.
Ooh, the dark side. That sounds intense.
It is. To meet the wild, sometimes destructive energy of the feminine, the author argues a man must tap into the killer or the destroyer archetype within himself.
Now, obviously, he isn't talking about domestic violence or becoming a criminal here.
No. He is using a metaphor for absolute fearlessness.
Oh, and give us an example.
Deida uses a highly relatable everyday example. If there's a strange noise downstairs at 2 in the morning or, a massive spider on the wall and the man cowers, freezes, or asks his partner to go deal with it.
Let me guess, her sexual attraction to him instantly evaporates.
Instantly. Because she needs to feel his capacity to face physical danger.
And the author draws a direct, unbroken line from that physical courage to deep sexual intimacy.
He does.
If a man has the capacity to face fear, chaos, and even death without flinching, he has the capacity to let go of his ego and ravish her fearlessly when they are intimate.
And maintaining this fearless masculine core is not just some mental exercise for Deida. It actually requires rigorous physiological practices.
Like actual body mechanics.
Yeah. A primary technique he emphasizes is breathing down the front.
Let's look at the mechanics of this because it's genuinely brilliant.
Sure.
When you get into an argument or you feel fear, what does your nervous system automatically do?
Well, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in. We hold our breath, we tighten our chest, we contract our solar plexus, and we tense our abdomen.
We literally build a physical armor to close ourselves off from the perceived threat.
Right. And he also says the superior man must consciously, manually override this physiological response.
How?
He must force the front of his body, his chest, his belly to remain wide open, relaxed, and breathing deeply.
So by forcing the diaphragm to drop and the belly to expand, he stays physically present. He absorbs the emotional leather with an open chest rather than retreating into a defensive shell.
It's powerful, but breathing is just the baseline.
Right.
The text goes into some highly controversial territory regarding male physiology, specifically advising men to fundamentally alter how they experience climax.
By bypassing ejaculation.
Yes. This is central to Daida's energetic economy. He claims that frequent ejaculation physically depletes a man's life force.
It drains the literal energetic currency he needs to pursue his life's mission.
Exactly. And beyond his own ambition, this depletion radically alters the power dynamic in the relationship.
Because if a man loses control easily and collapses into a spasm of release, his partner subconsciously registers that he is easily emptied.
She feels she has conquered him. If she can deplete his energy that easily in the bedroom, she subconsciously assumes the chaotic world outside will deplete him just as easily.
Wow.
It breeds a subtle, lingering distrust in his capacity to protect and lead.
So, if releasing energy breeds distrust because he's easily depleted, the logical inverse must be finding a way to experience the intimacy without the physiological release.
Right. Daida proposes a way to separate the two. Instead of releasing that energetic currency outward, a man should practice drawing that intense tension upward.
Drawing it up?
Yeah. Daida advises using specific breath work and internal focus to pull the energy up the spine, into the brain, and circulate it throughout the nervous system.
He argues this reinvests the currency into the body, creating non-depleting whole-body orgasms.
And the ultimate goal is for the man to maintain a constant, vibrant, erect energy for both his partner and his purpose.
Okay, so if drawing energy up the spine charges a man's internal battery, what happens when he steps out into a world that demands a totally different voltage?
This is where the book offers a brilliant practical tool for modern lives by categorizing temperatures of energy.
Temperatures of energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Different people and different situations offer different temperatures of feminine energy. Some energy is hot, spicy, chaotic, and fiery.
And other energy is cool, soothing, receptive, and calming.
Exactly. A man's dietary need for these different temperatures will fluctuate based on the friction in his own life.
Let me give an example of this.
Yeah.
Imagine you love your partner's fiery, passionate, hot energy. Like it's what drew you to them.
Right.
But then you get a massive promotion. Suddenly, you are sweating it out in a high-pressure corporate pressure cooker 60 hours a week. You come home completely fried, and your partner's usual hot energy suddenly feels intensely irritating.
And the danger here is that the man misinterprets this physiological friction as a relationship failure.
He thinks, I am no longer attracted to my partner. The relationship is over.
But the relationship isn't over. Your energetic diet just needs a temporary adjustment.
You are burning up at work, so your nervous system desperately craves cooling energy. You might need to go sit silently by a lake, or your partner might need to consciously offer a cooler, more soothing presence for a season.
Understanding these energetic temperatures prevents couples from throwing away a perfectly good marriage over a temporary mismatch in voltage.
It really all comes down to awareness.
Yes. The entire framework ultimately rests on profound awareness. Being aware of your ultimate mission, understanding the energetic mechanics of polarity, and taking absolute responsibility for the physical and emotional presence you bring into a room.
Which brings us to a synthesis of everything we've unpacked today. If we distill David Daida's vision of the superior man for a contemporary audience, it stands on a few unshakable pillars.
Right. First, discovering and fiercely prioritizing your absolute life purpose, your mission above all else.
Second, actively cultivating sexual polarity. Refusing to neutralize your relationship into a 50-50 friendship, and instead deliberately amplifying the friction between the masculine and feminine poles to sustain passion.
Third, abandoning the urge to fix or logically dissect emotional weather. Learning to stand imperturbable in the face of a storm, breathing down the front with an open chest.
And finally, managing your own energetic economy. Staying physically open, mastering your own life force, and recognizing the shifting temperatures of energy required to thrive in a chaotic modern world.
I mean, it is a demanding, rigorous framework.
It is. It challenges the bedrock of how we are socially conditioned to approach fairness and equality in our personal lives.
Definitely.
And that brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with today. We've spent this entire time analyzing how Daida's theories apply to romantic partners and the bedroom. But consider the 90-10 rule.
Right, that most of us need that polarity.
If 90% of us possess a core masculine or feminine essence that thrives on deep polarity, what is happening to you outside of your relationship?
Oh, that's a great question.
Think about your corporate job, your daily commute, your interactions at the grocery store. Are you carrying that perfectly balanced 50-50 spreadsheet mentality into every single aspect of your existence?
Because it forces you to ask if you are treating your own soul like a balanced ledger.
Exactly. You might be trying to protect your relationship by being neutral, but are you accidentally suffocating your own core essence at your desk every single day?
Something to really think about.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope mapping out this controversial terrain gave you some intense new perspectives to analyze in your own life. Keep questioning the defaults, keep learning, and keep diving deep.